Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Ciphr, Signs that You've Outgrown Your Payroll Provider. I'm Catherine and I'm Ciphrs Head of Content. Joining me today are Jackie, Account Development Manager, and Amanda, our Payroll Sales Manager. Hi Jackie and Amanda, how are you doing today?
Really good, thanks. Welcome everyone and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Yeah, great to be here. Really looking forward to today's session. Thanks for joining.
I'm just going to move on to today's agenda. We're going to share a little bit of an introduction to Ciphr if you haven't come across us before. Then we'll talk about the signs it's time to find a new payroll provider, and talk about conducting that search for the right payroll software and provider, how you can understand a payroll provider's different services. We'll talk a bit about software only, but also about bureau and fully managed options. And we'll run through what's available from Ciphr in terms of our payroll software and service options. This webinar is being recorded, so if you want to come back to anything or share it with a friend or colleague, you can just watch the recording afterwards. That will be emailed to you automatically. Jackie, I've got you down to read this slide. I was going to dive into it, but let's hand over to you and get cracking.
Yeah, so welcome everyone again. We just wanted to really introduce you to who Ciphr are, if anyone has not come across our brand before. We've been around for over 40 years. We started as a HR specialist. Over the few decades, we also became a payroll solution provider, and our customers vary from around 100 employees to customers with thousands of employees. We are a provider that can cover the whole life cycle of your employees. So Ciphr modules are not only HR and payroll, but we also extend out to recruitment, learning management, and also off-the-shelf learning content. We've got API connectivity, and we can also provide support with specialist time and attendance partners. Thank you, Catherine. So Ciphr dates back more than 40 years, and for a period of 10 years, we worked with a specialist payroll provider called Payroll Business Solutions. And then in 2019, after a 10-year relationship, Ciphr decided to buy PBS. So they joined the Ciphr family of companies. We were then at that point able to offer our customers not only a best-of-breed HR solution, but also a best-of-breed payroll solution. And we at that point could offer a choice of payroll, either cloud hosted, a fully managed, or payroll bureau services. So that extends to customer specific specifications, and it also covers the complexities in the education sector. So we've developed a integration. We've developed Ciphr PayLink, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on, and that creates the integration between the HR data changes into the Ciphr payroll. And this helps our customers increase the accuracy, and it reduces the amount of duplication and manual input. So our range of payroll services and solutions, they're all Microsoft tested, we're HMRC recognised, we're ISO 27001 and 9001 certified, and we're also a Baxter-proof bureau. So one of the most crucial responsibilities that everyone on this call, I'm guessing, has in any organisation is making sure that your employees are paid accurately and paid on time. And that might sound actually straightforward, but there are many complications and many hiccups along the way that you'll need to handle to make sure that you successfully run your payroll every time. So during the webinar today, we'll address some of those challenges facing the payroll teams, and we'll provide some tips on how to get service and technology that's actually right for you. So from payroll to payroll, you will be coping with all sorts of adjustments in pay. Some individuals change their working hours, others go on sabbatical or family leave, and therefore they won't be receiving their usual salary. There are also freelancers and contractors for you to consider, particularly in relation to off-payroll working rules, and that's all before you get the usual, the pension contributions, the tax, or the legislation which you'll need to comply. So various things to consider when choosing the right payroll option, and it's important to carry out a full assessment of what your payroll requirements are. So things to consider is the amount of time that you currently spend on manual processes every payroll run, whether that's a weekly or a monthly payroll run. Have you got the right qualified and trained staff? That's critical to getting payroll right, also reducing the number of errors. It's important to identify if payroll errors are occurring, what they are, and why they actually occur. Payroll errors can impact not only you as a payroll professional, but also it can affect things like inaccurate tax payments, underpayments, late payments, not to mention the impact that it will have actually on your employees and probably their financial situations. Your employees do depend on you to get their pay correctly, on time. They've got commitments with living expenses, transport, mortgage, and all the home commitments. So incorrect or late payments does cause emotional stress, which I'm sure everyone's experienced from your employees, and it can actually contribute to deteriorating a person's mental health. So lots of things to think about. Errors can become challenging. They can take a lot of time to find. Work really that the payroll professionals could be doing, contributing to more strategic tasks around finance rather than just digging through errors. You may opt to run payroll in-house with your own in-house payroll team. You need to make sure that they're fully trained, annual legislation updates, and it is your responsibility as a business to check that your employee information is correct. Even if using a payroll management software, it is your responsibility. Alternatively, you may want to consider outsourcing your payroll. If your organisation doesn't have capacity or expertise to run it in-house, your chosen payroll supplier who runs payroll on your behalf, they will employ the experts and they will know about new laws that affect business. Payroll and outsources companies can help free up time and they'll reduce your costs, and they'll also give you the peace of mind that your payroll is going to be processed by experts and be done accurately. Data security is a big consideration for any organisation and payroll professional. It's not difficult these days for people to steal employee information, and if you don't have the right safeguards in place when completing payroll, it does leave you vulnerable to fraud. So it's worth considering an HR solution that's integrated with your payroll system, which will create a more secure environment for your people data. The information is protected and it's stored safely. The payroll also plays an important part in retaining employees, maybe something that some of you might not consider often, but if you pay them accurately, one-off errors might be forgivable, but repeated errors that cause financial problems could lead you to staff retention issues. It can also give you reputational damage to consider. For disgruntled ex-employees, they might be inclined to put negative posts on things like Glassdoor or social media. So then that brings the organisation a whole load of other challenges around recruiting and training. So next slide, please, Catherine. So early conversations that Ciphr have with our customers are generally focused around the points that we can see here. So organisations spend lots of time on manual entry and calculations, duplicating payroll functions, and not to mention the checking and the reconciling. They're common conversations that we have at Ciphr when we first meet our new customers. So in order to reduce some of the processes, you may wish to consider, coming back to what's previously been mentioned, an integrated HR and payroll solution, which will provide you that single point of data entry. And it will also enable you to log your changes to your employees' job and pay, and then move those over to payroll. And at the same time, you can make sure that you've got embedded into your software system things like your schemes, sick schemes, maternity schemes, pension contributions. All of those will move the changes over, do the calculations in the system, and make sure that your employees are paid in line with whatever thing you've assigned. Over to you, Amanda. So I'll hand over the next bit over to Amanda. So Amanda will talk a little bit more about some of the problems, and Amanda will talk more about the different payroll solutions that you may wish to consider.
So great. So hiring and keeping in-house payroll professionals. So payroll management obviously is a very complex operation, and it needs a lot of different skills. Can have that sort of successful, accurate delivery, and with consistency as well. Data collection and management, as Jackie's already has already mentioned, is a really huge part of that process. So so checking, approving, and applying terms and conditions of service to all of that data to make sure that the pay is accurate. The payroll professional's role has changed substantially over the last few years as well. So we know we've got to get the basics right of payroll, but there's more things that we need to consider, like financial wellness, benefits management, budgeting, interpretation of legislation for things like the pensions, holiday pay, and parental leave. So it's a forever shifting scene for the management of pay. So finding the right person to organise this workload has become harder also, and retaining those staff, again, as Jackie mentioned, is harder still. Different types of customers at Ciphr have different approaches, and we find variations in different sectors as well, like education, manufacturing, charities. Everyone's got a slightly different way to deal with that. That collation of data for all of these different organisations, again, is a really important part of that. So again, the platforms that you're using are a key part of supporting that. And we have seen a trend towards outsourcing the payroll function in our experience, and it can remove the risk of supporting the payroll function in-house. So when you outsource, of course, then the responsibility for compliance and accuracy then becomes your outsourced supplier's responsibility. But it's not just a matter of pushing a button. Those companies will do a lot more for you than just a simple calculation run. There's so much to consider. There's no hard and fast rule for the style of payroll service that best fits your organisation. The in-house skill and knowledge about your company, the people in it, and the employee relations management side of it as well also have enormous value. We're always happy to explore what might be best fit service for your organisation, and we can support changes between different service levels as well. That flexibility is really important. We've got a great team of experienced payrollers who can advise you, and we're also thrilled to have recently appointed a new payroll MD, Julie Lally, and she's absolutely championed payroll transformation for organisations that she's worked with. So we'd love to get involved and help you with those conversations too. Is a huge part of that. So this is definitely one of the signs that we notice a lot for a reason to maybe think about moving either your payroll provider or your service style. Payroll solutions hold a vast amount of data about your people and their pay. So there's a potential to help with decision making within your organisation using that data in an intelligent way. So quality reporting and analysis is an area that can help lift the profile of payroll too. We do need regular reporting, so that's fine, to help identify areas, explain variances, and again, make sure you've got that compliance piece covered off. Compliance is going to be for pensions, HMRC, and those actually should be a really quick process. But it's not unusual for us to find that we're working with new customers who've grown their reporting out of necessity, and working around, you know, their legacy systems to get what they need. I recently spoke to a team who needed more than 40 different reports every single month. When we started kind of delving into that together a little bit further, it turned out that they were plugging together kind of 4 or 5 of those reports into one great big spreadsheet because actually they couldn't get what they needed from their current solution. So being able to just, you know, harmonize that, you know, standardize that into, you know, and get that down into, you know, just the important data that they need in the single exports, you know, is going to be transformational for them. So, I mean, those types of processes are not only time consuming, but then you're leaving yourself wide open to error. You know, you know, transposing figures, you know, starting to do VLOOKUPs or whatever to actually get the correct data you need. So for that one, that was kind of a quick, you know, fix and easy win for us to help them to achieve with a really great system. But looking deeper into the area of reports, you know, your payroll solution or your solution provider should be able to access detailed pay information, not just for the current tax period, but for every tax period and all of that historic data as well. So, you know, looking at data warehousing that, you know, using people data to help drive commissions for the future. You know, it could be helping to identify, for example, absence costs being an indicator of staff welfare, introduction of new benefits and the impact on that kind of longer term, and particularly on your staff retention as well. So being able to see the evidence of changes that the HR team or the, you know, the wider benefits and compensation teams might be implementing, you know, again, that's really, really powerful. So a major overhaul of reporting should absolutely be a part of any review of your solutions. Yeah, so finding the right payroll software or provider, of course. So depending on the size of your HR and payroll teams, you might want to consider whether a standalone solution or an integrated HR and payroll system is best suited to your needs. The employee data held in the HR systems is some of the most safeguarded data sets, so it would make sense to integrate HR and payroll and really use your HR data to drive that payroll process.
Yeah, so it's important to establish whichever payroll provider. If you go down the managed route, it's important for you to choose a BACS approved bureau, and it means that they'll be able to make payments to employees or the HMRC on your behalf without the need for any funds to be transferred over. And any provider that's got this accreditation, that gives you the peace of mind that they have actually undergone stringent security checks. So you can be more than confident that you're having your payroll outsourced by a reputable payroll outsourcing company. So payroll outsourcing companies should also be able to offer you the flexibility of extra services such as pensions administration, i.e. logging onto your pension provider and making those contributions on the back of the reporting that Amanda's talked about. Also P11D, reporting benefits, or as we move towards benefits in kind, and also producing your P45s and your P16. If you opt for an in-house route, and also your outsourced provider should also be able to do this with an integrated HR and payroll solution, your employees will find their pay-related documents, such as P60s, P11Ds, payslips, all in self-service. Another consideration is how you're handling your auto-enrolment. So again, that should be able to be managed whether you've got running payroll in-house using your software, or whether you're using an outsourced service and they'll run your pension auto-enrolment as well. So make sure that you take into account also the costs of every element of your current payroll function. So when you're comparing costs or looking to move service, you need to consider what the monthly or annual costs of your current system or provider is, the number of staff that you currently have associated and their obviously associated salary with processing your payroll each time. How much time in staff costs does it take finding errors? What is that staff cost, and do you have any professional memberships? Another cost to consider. So the right HR system can also act to save costs, as that's your single source of truth for your payroll information, and further reduce the risk, of course, of incorrect information. And again, a reliable HR and integrated payroll system will really reduce that manual intervention, and that hence will free up time. So if your payroll professionals are involved with the finance team, producing more strategic and finance related information, that's going to free out their time. So check out the customer support as well. I'm sure everyone's got experience with your current provider, so think about what kind of support your new provider can give you. Do they provide a person at the other end of the phone, or is it a ticket only service? Do you have the same member of the team? What's resilience like if that member of the team is off? Or is it a call centre environment where you're never quite sure who you might speak to? Will you get a dedicated account manager or a customer success manager, as we have here at Ciphr? So all of those things to consider, and having the right access, most importantly in a timely manner, is absolutely key to the success of your payroll. Next slide, please. So let's just talk about a little bit about integration. So different providers will do the integration slightly differently. I mentioned earlier that we bought an organisation called PBS. We created a link called Paylink. So Ciphr have created this smooth integration between our HR and our payroll called Paylink, and it's the interface that gives our customers, they benefit from that single point of data entry. And the Paylink enables the collection of all of your relevant data on HR. It will produce regular outputs and reports, and that then gets submitted either into your own payroll so you can run it in-house, or whether it's output out to the managed service team. So whichever service with Ciphr, that the Paylink will serve the data. So as standard, the Paylink will integrate information such as starters, leavers, job and pay changes, allowances and payments, other integration of other fields that might be unique to you. The Paylink also allows for multiple payrolls to be handled. So if you've got more than one PAYE reference, that's absolutely fine. And the Paylink dashboard gives you visibility of where that processing is. So if you've got fortnightly, weekly, more than one monthly payroll, the Paylink dashboard gives you visibility. Paylink is also how we move the pay-related documents, having completed the processing, into your self-service access for your employees, which means your employees can access their pay-related documents not only from desktops, but from any mobile device that they want to use as well. When it comes to other business, including time systems, pension providers and finance systems, payroll also provides that integration with those other services as well. Over to you, Amanda.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, so how do we work out which is the best type of solution for us? In this next section, we'll take a look at the difference between the in-house and the outsource. It might be you need something in between, you know, those kind of part managed, to make sure that you've got the best support for you for your organisation and you know and into the future as well. So we'll consider the advantages of all of the options and what you need to consider when you're deciding. So where do you start? So really the best place to start is to have a look at what you do at the moment. A full audit is going to be really valuable. You know, it's all about those workflow processes. You know, what happens to a piece of data when it does arrive in the payroll team, and do you know what to do with it? A really great payroll manager will have created a payroll manual, so you'll be able to pick up and check that, you know, and see, you know, where that workflow goes. Even if you have a payroll manual, of course, it needs to be adaptable, it needs to be updated. So we need to know exactly what to do in every eventuality within the payroll team. That can be affected by all sorts of things. Of course, you might be acquiring new businesses or merging. There could be TUPE transfers, so again, being able to adapt to those different conditions and different payment types. So regular reviews may be enough to prevent the payroll errors, but some mistakes might be more fundamental in their source. And so, this kind of audit and review is really going to help to identify any opportunities that you might have to bring in a more effective process. How are your HR and payroll systems supporting those processes? And that's again, something to really help you to prepare to have great conversations with new HR and payroll software providers. You can find any elements within your existing systems that might be old, inaccurate, or not secure. Of course, Jackie's mentioned data security as well. That includes written media as well as anything that might be in your system, spreadsheets and stuff. So this kind of audit could be enough to find the cause of payroll errors, and having a regular catch up with your payroll team or your payroll provider is absolutely imperative in this process as well. Especially if performance means that tasks might not be completed accurately or in a timely manner. It's easy to ignore small errors or to quickly fix small errors, but it's important to find out why those happened and prevent those happening again, or to prevent them turning into bigger problems, of course. So these regular reviews, giving feedback with your payroll team and having the chance to improve, the chance to celebrate successes as well, all of this is really important stuff. Self-service is a really key element of this too. So, encouraging employees to own their own record, their own data, to update things, and for you to have verification processes in that process, either again, internally or run by your system, to make sure that changes are coming through to payroll effectively. Changes to bank details, names, national insurance numbers, new starter data. A really great system is going to help again that process, and again improve the quality and the accuracy of your payroll delivery. Ciphrs onboarding module can help that enormously. The onboarding, of course, is that point between making a job offer and actually somebody's first day at work. Again, if we can be data gathering for new starters within that period and keeping their engagement going, again, that's really going to help your payroll team, so that we're not waiting until the new starter is already with you before we start asking for this data. Also looking at the compliance side, if you are going to go outsource, then make sure you've got a BACS approved bureau so that payments can be made to employees and HMRC on your behalf without actually having to move funds around. We're still talking to customers who they have to send the total net pay and tax to their payroll provider. Don't do that. We don't need finance teams having additional responsibilities and additional risk. BACS approved is super important, and of course any of the accreditations. HMRC recognised systems and those data security accreditations, the ISO 27001 and things that Jackie mentioned earlier. So your payroll outsourcing, as I mentioned earlier, it's not just a click of a button to do the calculation. There's a whole lot more that you should be asking for your outsource provider to do. Pensions administration is a big one and could be very time consuming. Get rid of that. P11D reporting, the benefits in kind management, communications with HMRC. There's a lot of back office noise that goes with a payroll service. So again, any bureau should be able to help you to manage that. pensions particularly. Auto enrolment has been around with us for more than 10 years now, but again, we're still finding that we're talking to companies that do a lot of the assessment and the tracking postponement and dealing with pension companies. And again, there's a lot of ways that you can tighten that up, and again, a great system is certainly going to help with that workflow. So the right HR system can act as the single source of truth for your payroll information, and reduce risk of incorrect information causing issues further down the line. And because little manual intervention is required, you can free up really valuable time for your HR, payroll and finance teams, so that they can do the more strategic stuff. So choosing the right service for you. Your organisation needs a team that has in-depth knowledge of how payroll works and what's needed to stay compliant. So the question is, do you outsource it, or do you have your own team in-house who's going to do that? So the best option for your organisation is going to absolutely depend on your requirements, but each option absolutely has advantages. So we've got a little summary on the screen here for that sort of at a glance. So obviously in-house payroll is when your company, you've got your own internal team or department that deals with the payroll process for your organisation. So these people obviously are your employees. They're paid through the payroll system that they manage, and they'll more often than not they'll sit in the HR team or the finance team. The roles are going to include preparing and checking that payroll data, and performing the full calculations of the pay run, and as we've just mentioned earlier, again, those relationships with outside bodies like HMRC and pensions, courts, it could be any number of different third-party providers that they also need to manage as part of their role. So we need to pay people, we need to get pay slips out. We shouldn't ignore the fact that the employees are the most important part of the picture here, but having your own in-house team means that you've got the control and the flexibility about things like cut-offs, payday, and the flexibility to make any changes quickly, make any of those decisions that impact payroll. So your own internal team are also a great point of contact for your employees to know that there's someone that they can trust to have those sensitive conversations about their pay. So, again, that employee relations part of it is really, really important. When you're outsourcing your payroll, of course, you are using an outside body to do that. There's a company that you're giving that trust and that relationship to manage the pay for your people. The solutions that various different outsourcing payroll companies will provide, that there's going to be loads of different service levels. So again, make sure that you are going to get what you need. They're all going to pay people, but how much of the role do you also need to outsource? And again, those workflows that we were talking about just now, that's going to really help you decide whether that again those functions are essential to keep in-house, or actually fits with the outsourcing model really well. It's not part of your core activity, and you can quite easily outsource that function. You can customize your outsourced payroll support with the majority of payroll suppliers. If they're very sort of fixed about that, maybe they're not going to be right for you. That flexibility is important. So whether the outsourcing is viable for you will depend on the complexity of your payroll, or the frequency of your payroll. Maybe you've got weekly payrolls and the turnaround is just going to be too tight. There will be some businesses where this choice will save them time and money. You're always going to need somebody, either in HR or finance, who's going to be able to be a point of contact for that bureau. They're going to be able to approve the payrolls, deal with the data exchange going backwards and forwards. but it's going to vastly reduce the amount of time that you need to spend on the payroll process. And also you won't need to worry about keeping pace with changes to legislation. So what would be top of your list if you're looking for new payroll software? So automation seems to be just a recurring theme with all of the conversations that we're having with our customers. So many of those customers that we're helping are dealing with long lists of calculations which have to be done outside of their payroll solution, whether that's software or outsourced, by the way. So holiday is a really big one of those, dealing with the 52-week average calculation, or up to 104 weeks if there's absences in that reference period. We appreciate every customer is entitled to their own interpretation of how to comply with different pieces of legislation. But it's our job as a payroll supplier to make sure that you get the accurate results that you need, according to your rules to dealing with these different areas of compliance. The employees are the most important thing. They need to know that they're getting the right pay and that they understand how it's been calculated. Company sick, again, Jackie mentioned this earlier, sick pay, again, we find, customers are dealing with maybe different schemes and they've got a different spreadsheet for every scheme, and it's just really difficult to manage. So again, if we can automate some of those processes for you, again, there should be really great wins coming back. Very often the finance team are overlooked in these conversations as well. They are a really important end customer of the payroll process. Getting the analysis that they need in the format that they need it in is absolutely vital. You might find that they're also spending many hours with many spreadsheets, cost splitting being one of those areas that you might not realize that they're doing. They're doing cross-charging. There might be lots of different cost centers, especially if you're multi-site, or you've got different project codes, for example, that you need to apply to different elements of pay. So, so what are the benefits you need? People don't change payroll supplier unless there's a really compelling reason to do it. It's something that is safe, if it's working, but things might have got a little bit out of hand over time with the amount of processes that you've developed to actually get that payroll done. So do take a really good look at your workflows, find what it is that you want to improve, and then any supplier will be able to help you to reach those goals. So any system as well, of course, should be backed by a really great team of customer success, customer care, that service desk, and we're really lucky at Ciphr to have a great team of knowledgeable payroll people to help you.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Jackie. I'm going to give you a little breather and run through a recap before we dive into our Q&A, which I didn't really flag enough at the beginning. So if you have questions for Jackie or Amanda, or both of them, please send them in using the control panel on your screen, and we'll get to those in a moment. So just to recap on what we've covered today, it's really important to understand your key payroll challenges, like what's the impetus for you for moving and what's your need to have and your would like to have when you're looking for a new software or a provider. And then it's all about finding the right payroll technology and provider for your needs. If you have specialist needs for your sectors, for example, then you need to look for a provider that can meet those and is honest about how they can meet those, like upfront. Also have a think about which service is right for you. Would that be in-house, managed, or bureau? That might depend on staff that you have in-house, and whether that would be a cost-effective option for you, and how you're managing compliance with regulations. Always keep looking for inefficiencies and ways to reduce manual processes. One of the things that's come out of this webinar is just talking about how much automation can save you in terms of time and money, and also in reducing those errors and ultimately delivering a better service to all of your clients, whether that's end employees and how they get paid, or your finance colleagues and how they manage their costs and budget. And we offer here at Ciphr both payroll software and a fully managed payroll service. So whichever option you're looking for, we can help you out. So it's time for the question and answers now. If you have some questions, send them in. If you don't, that's fine. We clearly answered them all, or we can pick them up offline later. Just one question that I had for you, both of you, like you mentioned that companies don't tend to switch payroll provider unless there's like a really good reason for change, because it is such a big change. Could you just describe like what the process of moving to Ciphr payroll would be like? Do you offer parallel run sites so we can guarantee that everything's running smoothly? I'm happy for anyone to take that.
Yeah, now me and Jackie are both looking at each other. Shall I take that?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't mind picking that up. So
All right, go ahead.
what we do is we'll take a duplication. First of all, you'll engage with your project manager. Your project manager will align the project to what you're doing currently. They will work with our specialist consultants, so they're our own Ciphr consultants, and we will duplicate and do a data import from your existing payroll. So you don't need to worry that information's going to be lost. You don't need to worry that you need to duplicate. We will lift all of your employee data. We will import that into Ciphr for you. No doubt there'll be a process of checking as well, and we'll bring in all your year to date. So you don't have to move payroll at the start of a new financial year. You can move your payroll at any point in a financial year because all the amounts are carried over. And as Catherine mentioned, we'll do 2 parallel runs to give us time to make sure everything is absolutely spot on. And generally we find that we're ready to go live with the 3rd run. So whether you choose the Ciphr in-house and run it yourselves, or whether you're handing it over to the Ciphr managed team, you'll be ready to go generally on the 3rd run with everything duplicated and running smoothly.
Fab, thanks Jackie. Just give you another couple of minutes if there's any further questions. Jackie, could I ask you for, like, out of all the things we've talked about today, what would be your #1 recommendation to take away from this webinar when you're considering switching to a new provider?
Is make sure that your payroll, so because customers that struggle with their existing payroll provider, when they dig a little bit deeper, has your payroll provider got the experience? Have they got the relative accreditation? Are the team that are processing stable? So it's kind of make sure that you've got a tried and tested and a long-standing payroll provider. And on top of that, make sure you have a very secure and robust way of getting those changes into your payroll, whether that's coming in from a HR system. The least ideal route is by manual typing. So we've talked about lots of ways of bringing payroll changes into the system, and manual entry is the least reliable generally.
Sure, thank you, Jackie. Amanda, would you have a single point to remember for our viewers today?
Yeah, really, you know, for me, it's the the workflow thing, is understanding your processes, documenting those, and actually understand where you need to find efficiencies in your current process. You might even be able to achieve those with your current supplier. You might not need to change at all. So, you know, if you actually know what you need, how you need it, and then be able to have those conversations with your provider, there might be improvements that you can make with your current solution. So, but if you can't, then, you know, it's time to go shopping.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That comes to the end of our Q&A now. If you're watching live, this recording will be emailed to you soon. If you'd like to learn more about Ciphr's payroll offerings, we did have one question come in about pricing structure. So, for example, if you want to know about pricing, how we work that, you can opt in to find out more information using the exit form on your screen after this broadcast, or you can email us at info@Ciphr, and we'll be able to discuss your requirements in detail then. Thank you, Amanda and Jackie, for sharing your expertise today. Thanks everyone on the call for bearing with us through our technical hiccups. We appreciate that. We did practice, but you know, stuff always goes wrong on the day, so there we are. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for attending, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.